When our daughter was born, I cried. I mean, really cried, the kind where your chest caves in and you don't care who sees. She was beautiful. Tiny hands. Soft skin. My whole world changed in that hospital room. I looked at my wife and felt like we had made something pure, something eternal. But as the months passed, a whisper started inside me. She doesn't look like me. I tried to shut it down. I told myself I was being ridiculous. Babies change. Features come in later. Maybe she got more from my wife's side. Still it lingered. We named her Lily. I rocked her to sleep every night. I kissed her forehead more times than I could count. But every once in a while, when I caught her reflection or stared into her eyes, that little voice returned. Are you sure she's yours? It wasn't just the baby, either. My wife, let's call her Sarah, started acting different. Distant. Cold, even. She was always tired, always busy. Sex became rare. Conversations turned short. I assumed it was just new parent stress. But deep down, another question began to form. What if something happened before Lily was born? Still, I never brought it up. I didn't want to ruin what we had. I loved them both more than anything. But doubt is a dangerous thing. It grows like mold in the dark. One night, after putting Lily to bed, I found myself scrolling through home DNA test kits. Just curiosity, I told myself. I didn't order it that night. But I did 2 weeks later. When it arrived, I hid it in the garage. It sat there for days. I'd go to grab it, then chicken out. Finally, one Saturday morning while Sarah was grocery shopping, I swabbed Lily's mouth. My hands were shaking. My heart was hammering. I sealed the test and mailed it out. Waiting for the results was torture. I felt sick, guilty, like I'd betrayed my wife and daughter. I even considered calling the company to cancel. Then the email came. I clicked it, barely able to breathe. 0.0% probability of paternity. I remember everything about that moment. The way the room spun. The way I fell into the couch like my legs gave out. I must have stared at that screen for an hour. That was my baby, my Lily, and yet not. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I sat Sarah down and told her. Her face went white. She didn't even try to deny it. She just crumbled. Tears, sobs, and then the words. I'm so sorry. I never thought it would come to this. I didn't know. I really didn't know. She had cheated. Around the time we were trying to conceive, she had a brief affair with someone she met through work. She thought it was over. She told herself she was just confused, overwhelmed. It was one of those emotional, fast-burning mistakes. And then she got pregnant. She said she truly believed the baby was mine. But the timeline, she knew there was a chance. I wish I could say I yelled. That I walked out and slammed the door. But I just sat there, quiet. Numb. My heart was beating, but I felt dead inside. I moved out a week later. I needed space. I couldn't look at her without feeling like my chest was going to explode. But leaving Lily? That was the hardest thing I've ever done. Because even though she wasn't mine by blood, she was mine. I still saw her. I held her. I sang to her. DNA didn't erase the love I'd built for her. But the marriage? It didn't survive. We tried counseling. We tried co-parenting. We tried pretending. But the trust was shattered. And once trust is gone, love becomes something different, something colder. Now, years later, I still think of Lily as my daughter. I still see her sometimes. Her real father? He never stepped up. And as far as I'm concerned, she's better off. But I'll never forget the pain of that moment, the email, the confession, the unraveling. Infidelity doesn't just break hearts. It breaks identities. It makes you question everything you thought was real. And the hardest part? Sometimes, love survives the betrayal. But that doesn't mean the relationship does. When Lily was born, I thought I had everything. I remember holding her for the first time, this tiny human wrapped in hospital linens, her little fingers curling around mine. I cried. I'm not ashamed to say that. I'd never felt anything that intense before. In that moment, she was mine, no doubts, no questions. Just pure love. For weeks after that, I would stare at her while she slept on my chest. Her breath, her warmth, her tiny heartbeat, all of it felt like a miracle. I would have done anything for her. I was so emotionally invested, it was like something rewired in me overnight. I went from a man to a father in a matter of seconds, and I took pride in that. But around the 2-month mark, I started noticing things. Subtle at first. Her eyes deep brown, like my wife's, but definitely not like mine. The shape of her nose. The tone of her skin. I tried to ignore it, I really did. I told myself babies change all the time. Hell, my sister's kid looked like a completely different person at 6 months compared to when he was born. Still, that voice in my head started whispering, "She doesn't look like you." And that whisper? It was relentless. I felt horrible for even thinking it. Like I was betraying her, betraying my wife. I'd catch myself comparing baby photos, mine, my dad's, cousins. I even asked my mom casually if she thought Lily resembled anyone on our side. She gave me this weird look and said, "Well, I'm sure she'll grow into it." That just made it worse. I started analyzing everything. The shape of her ears, her expressions, even her laugh. I kept hoping to find something, anything, that linked her back to me, something I could latch onto and say, "There. That's me. She's mine." But I couldn't. And I hated myself for it. Because here's the thing, emotionally, I was already hers. I'd wake up for midnight feedings without complaint. I'd sing to her, rock her when she cried. I even gave up my gym time because I didn't want to miss her first smile. You can't fake that kind of bond. That's real. But emotional love and biological doubt? They're like oil and water. They don't mix. And the more I loved her, the worse the doubt felt. Like I was being torn in two. One side of me was all in dad mode, protector, caretaker. The other side? Haunted by the question, what if she's not mine? And it's not just about looks. It's about identity, legacy, that primal instinct of continuing your bloodline, seeing yourself in your child's face. I kept thinking, if she's not mine, what does that make me? Am I just a placeholder? A lie? But every time I held her, those thoughts would melt. Just for a second, she'd grip my finger or nuzzle into my neck, and I'd forget everything else. Because in those moments, she felt like mine. That's what made it so confusing, this emotional tug of war between what I felt and what I feared. I loved her, truly, but I was scared that love wasn't built on the truth. And that's where everything started to unravel. At first, I thought it was just the baby blues, postpartum stuff. You hear about it all the time. Sleepless nights, hormonal changes, stress, exhaustion. It made sense. I kept telling myself it's a tough time for both of us. But deep down, I knew something else was going on. It started small. She stopped kissing me in the mornings. Not in a mean way. Just, it stopped. No good morning kiss. No have a good day hug. At first, I chalked it up to being tired. We were both sleep deprived, and Lily was waking up 3 or 4 times a night. But even when we had a good night's sleep, even on weekends, the closeness was different. She wouldn't look me in the eyes the way she used to. Our conversations got shorter, quieter, more functional than emotional. Did you pack the bottles? Can you grab diapers on the way home? She needs a bath. It all became task-oriented. Like we were coworkers managing a demanding project, not 2 people in love. And the intimacy? Gone. No sex. No cuddling. Even sitting next to each other on the couch started feeling distant. She always had her phone in her hand. Or she'd get up and go straight to the bedroom. I started wondering if she was avoiding me. Or maybe she just didn't feel connected to me anymore. I kept giving her space. I wanted to be supportive. I didn't want to pressure her. But the more I gave, the more she pulled away. I started to feel like a guest in my own house. And the worst part? She didn't even notice. Or if she did, she didn't care enough to ask if I was okay. I was walking around, emotionally bleeding, and she was just disconnected. Then came the defensiveness. If I asked her about anything at all, her guard would go up. "Why are you interrogating me?" she'd say. Or, "God, I can't even breathe without you assuming something." I didn't even know what I was assuming. I just felt like something wasn't right. But every time I brought it up, she made me feel like I was the problem. Like I was paranoid or needy. And that's the part that really messed with me. I started second-guessing myself. Maybe I was being insecure. Maybe I was just exhausted and imagining things. Maybe I was looking for a problem because I felt left out because the baby took over everything, and I didn't know where I fit anymore. But the thing is, love doesn't disappear like that. Not overnight. I knew the woman I married. We were best friends before we were anything else. We laughed at stupid inside jokes, stayed up talking for hours, held hands in grocery store aisles. I knew what her love felt like, and this wasn't it. She was hiding something. I could feel it in her energy, in her silence, in how she never initiated affection anymore. And no, I didn't want to jump to conclusions. But when someone starts acting like a stranger in your own home, what are you supposed to think? And then I noticed the way she avoided certain topics. Like when I brought up the time we conceived Lily, she would always rush past the conversation. It was subtle, but it was there. Like she was dodging a memory she didn't want me to revisit. That was when the voice in my head got louder. Something's off. She's not telling me everything. And maybe this isn't just about hormones or stress. Maybe it's something deeper. That was when I started to connect the dots. But I didn't want to believe it. Because believing it meant my entire reality was at risk. And I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. I swear, I didn't want to do it. Even thinking about it made me feel like I was betraying both of them, my wife, my daughter. What kind of father doubts his own child? What kind of husband secretly questions his wife's loyalty? I felt sick just entertaining the thought. But the thought wouldn't go away. It started as a quiet hum in the back of my mind. Then it got louder. And louder, until it was echoing in every quiet moment. During feedings, during diaper changes, while she slept peacefully on my chest. I'd just stare at her and wonder, am I even allowed to call myself her father? I didn't tell anyone, not even my best friend. I was too ashamed. I felt like a terrible person just for thinking it. I hated myself for doubting. But you can't lie to yourself forever, not when your gut keeps punching you with the same question every single day. I tried brushing it off. I tried drowning it out with love. With effort. I poured myself even deeper into being a dad. But even in the happiest moments, like when Lily giggled for the first time, that voice was there. In the background, whispering, what if this joy doesn't belong to you? So one night, after putting her to bed and kissing her goodnight, I sat on the edge of the couch with my phone in hand. I typed in, how to get a discreet paternity test. Just typing those words made me feel dirty. Like I was crossing some line I couldn't uncross. But I hit search. I read reviews. I looked at the process. Saliva swabs. Home delivery. Fast results. Confidential. My heart was racing. My hand was shaking. I didn't place the order that night. I stared at the checkout page for an hour and closed it. Told myself I was being stupid. Told myself I'd just talk to Sarah about it. But I didn't. Because deep down, I didn't want to hear a lie. Or worse, a truth I couldn't handle. I ended up ordering the kit 3 days later. I had it shipped to my office. I didn't want it showing up at home where Sarah might see it and ask questions. When it arrived, I left it in my car trunk for almost a week. Every time I looked at the box, I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff. Do I really want to know? That was the question. Because once I knew that truth was out, there was no way to go back to before. But the pressure kept building. The silence between us. The way Sarah wouldn't look me in the eye anymore. The way she dodged touch, dodged connection. Something inside me cracked. One Saturday morning, while she went out grocery shopping with her mom, I grabbed the test box from the trunk and brought it inside. I sat there staring at it for a good 10 minutes. Lily was in her bouncer, babbling, smiling at me like nothing in the world was wrong. And that made it so much harder. Because I knew if the results came back the way I feared, this moment, this pure, happy moment was going to feel like a lie. I opened the test, swabbed her mouth gently while singing to her so she wouldn't squirm. I talked to her like nothing was wrong. Told her she was beautiful. That daddy loved her. Because I did. And I still do. I sealed the test. Put it back in the box. Drove to a random drop-off location just to keep it quiet. Sent it off with a pit in my stomach so deep it felt like I'd swallowed cement. Then I waited. And every day that followed was just one long, silent scream in my head. The email came while I was at work. I'd been waiting for weeks, trying not to think about it. But every minute felt like an hour. I couldn't escape the nagging thought, what if it's true? What if she isn't mine? I'd open my inbox over and over again, searching for some sign, some answer to the question that had been tormenting me. When the email arrived, I was in the middle of a meeting. I saw the notification pop up on my phone, and for a second, I couldn't breathe. My hand shook so badly I could barely hold my phone. I told myself I wouldn't open it right then. Not with everyone in the room. But all I could think about was that damn email. I had to know. I needed to know. I excused myself from the meeting and stepped outside to a quiet corner of the building. My palms were sweating. My heart was racing. I knew, deep down, that this would change everything. If the result came back negative, I couldn't come back from that. I couldn't unfeel that heartbreak. I opened the email. And there it was staring back at me. 0.0% probability of paternity. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. My knees gave out. I grabbed onto the railing next to me just to stay standing. My vision blurred. My breath caught in my throat. I couldn't process it. I read those words over and over, hoping they'd change. Hoping I was seeing things. But no, the words didn't change. That wasn't my baby. My daughter, the one I had fed, held, protected, loved, wasn't mine. My heart shattered. It felt like someone ripped a hole inside me. I couldn't stop staring at the screen, hoping, praying, that the results would somehow shift, that there'd be some tiny shred of doubt in the numbers. But no, it was definitive. I sat down right there on the cold concrete outside the building. The noise of the street, the passing cars, the chatter of people, it all disappeared. Everything disappeared except that paper. Except those words. I don't even know how long I sat there. I think my mind went blank for a while. I just couldn't think. It was like the universe had taken my entire world and turned it upside down. I had been a father in every way that mattered, and now I wasn't. It was like a piece of my identity had been stolen. I was heartbroken, angry, confused, betrayed. But I wasn't just angry at Sarah. I was angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. For not trusting myself. For letting my doubts fester. I felt stupid for not confronting her earlier. For not listening to my instincts when they told me something wasn't right. But more than anything, I felt hollow. I had no idea how to move forward. I didn't know what this meant for me, for my relationship with Sarah, for my bond with Lily. She wasn't mine, but she was mine. It sounds insane, but in that moment, I didn't know how to feel about the child I had raised for months. I loved her with every part of me, and yet now it felt like I'd been living a lie. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw my phone against the wall and make it all go away. But what was I supposed to do with the truth? It didn't give me an answer. It didn't fix anything. I didn't call Sarah right away. I couldn't. I needed time to process. To figure out what the hell had just happened to my life. But in that moment, I knew there was no going back. No pretending this wasn't the truth. The truth had shattered everything I had built. I didn't know how to do it. How do you tell the person you've shared your life with, your best friend, your partner, that everything you thought you knew was a lie? That the child you've been raising for months, loving with everything you have, doesn't belong to you? I spent the entire day pacing around my house, unable to sit still. I felt like I was suffocating. The truth was out, but the weight of it felt unbearable. I couldn't keep it inside anymore, but I also couldn't make sense of it. It was like the ground beneath me had shifted, and I wasn't sure where I stood anymore. When Sarah walked through the door that evening, I knew it was time. My heart was pounding in my chest. I felt nauseous. I had been dreading this moment, knowing that nothing would ever be the same after it. I couldn't fake it. I couldn't pretend everything was fine. The truth had to come out. She smiled at me like everything was normal, like we were just two tired parents at the end of a long day. But I could barely look at her. The words I had been rehearsing for days felt foreign on my tongue. I was angry, but I wasn't just angry at her. I was angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. For letting things get this far. For allowing myself to believe everything was okay when it wasn't. I didn't know where to start. So, I just blurted it out. I got a DNA test. Her face froze. She looked at me like she was waiting for me to explain, but she already knew. She knew what I was talking about. And I saw it in her eyes: fear, guilt, desperation. I couldn't even finish my sentence before she started crying. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I never wanted this. I never thought it would come to this." I felt my chest tighten as the flood of emotions hit me all at once. I wasn't ready for her tears. I wasn't ready for the guilt. I wasn't ready to see her break down in front of me. But she did, and I didn't know how to process it. I didn't want you to find out like this, she continued, her voice trembling. It was a mistake. A horrible, horrible mistake. But I didn't think it would affect our family like this. I swear, I didn't know. My mind was spinning. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. To demand answers. To ask how she could do this to me, how she could do this to us. But I couldn't. The anger felt like it was suffocating me. My mind was racing, and yet I couldn't find the words to express how deep the betrayal cut. How long? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. How long have you been hiding this from me? She hesitated, her eyes cast down at the floor. It was before I got pregnant. I swear it was just that one time. It was a mistake. I never meant to hurt you. But I couldn't tell you. I couldn't destroy everything we built. And that's when I understood. She didn't want to tell me. She didn't want to admit the truth because she knew how much it would hurt. But hiding it from me, pretending everything was okay, only made it worse. It broke everything. It broke us. My mind was numb. I kept looking at her, but I didn't know what to say. I felt like I was trapped in some twisted nightmare, unable to wake up. The woman I thought I knew, my wife, my partner, was a stranger. And so was the life I thought we had. You're telling me Lily isn't mine? The words came out before I could stop them, and they tasted bitter in my mouth. No, she whispered, shaking her head. I thought she was. I didn't know until the test. I didn't know until after I found out I was pregnant, and then I was too scared to tell you. I was too scared to ruin everything. And that's when I lost it. The tears came, unexpected. The pain of everything, the lies, the betrayal, the love that felt like it was slipping through my fingers hit me like a ton of bricks. I've been her dad from the start, I said, my voice breaking. I've loved her like she was mine. I raised her. And now I find out she's not even mine? She reached out, but I pulled away. I couldn't let her touch me. I didn't know if I ever wanted her to again. I couldn't understand how she could let this happen. How she could let me fall in love with a child that wasn't mine, without even giving me a chance to know the truth. And that's when the silence set in. Neither of us spoke for what felt like hours. The air between us was thick, suffocating. All I could hear was my own heartbeat, pounding in my chest. The love I had felt for my daughter, for Sarah, was suddenly clouded by the weight of this revelation. Nothing felt real anymore.